I spent 26 years serving in the United States Navy. 26 years. 3 deployments, 2 combat zones, hundreds of nights sleeping on steel decks while storms slammed against the hull. Countless birthdays missed, anniversaries missed, Thanksgivings missed, Christmas mornings missed. I gave my country everything I had. And somehow, that still wasn't enough for my family. Because in my family, there had always been 2 sets of rules. One for my younger sister, Emily, and one for everyone else, especially me. If Emily forgot someone's birthday, everyone laughed. If I forgot one, I got a lecture. If Emily quit another job, she was finding herself. If I worked 80-hour weeks overseas, I was obsessed with the military. My parents spent my entire life treating Emily like she hung the moon, and me? I was just the dependable one, the backup plan, the kid who never caused trouble, the one who could supposedly handle disappointment. At least, that's what they always told themselves. You're strong, Claire. You're independent. You don't need us as much as Emily does. Funny how those words always seemed to justify ignoring me. For years, I told myself it didn't matter. I had a career. I had purpose. I had brothers and sisters in uniform who became family. But retirement was supposed to be different. Retirement wasn't just another ceremony. It wasn't another promotion. It wasn't another award. It was the end of 26 years of service, the closing chapter of my entire adult life. And for once, I wanted my family there. Just once. I wanted them to choose me. 3 months before the ceremony, I called my parents. Mom answered. "Claire, honey, how are you?" I smiled. "Good, actually, I've got some news." "Oh?" "My retirement ceremony is scheduled." There was a pause. Then excitement. "Really?" "Yep." "When?" I gave her the date. Silence. A strange silence, the kind that instantly makes your stomach tighten. Then Dad's voice appeared in the background. "What date?" Mom repeated it. Another pause. Then I heard him sigh. Not excitement, not pride, a sigh. My stomach dropped. "What's wrong?" I asked. Mom hesitated. "Well, here we go. Emily's wedding weekend is around that time." I closed my eyes. Of course it was. Of course. Emily had already postponed that wedding twice, once because she didn't like the venue, once because she didn't like the weather forecast. Now apparently my retirement ceremony was the inconvenience. "It's not the same day," I said carefully. "No, but people will be arriving." People. Always people. Random people somehow mattered more than their daughter. Dad finally got on the phone. "We'll figure it out." Not, "we'll be there," not, "wouldn't miss it," just, "we'll figure it out." I should have known then, but I didn't, because part of me still hoped. Weeks passed. I mailed invitations, reserved front row seats. 3 seats. Mom, Dad, Emily. I even paid extra for accommodations nearby. I wanted everything perfect, because despite everything, I still wanted them there. 1 month before the ceremony, I called again. "Did you book your flights?" Silence. Then Mom, "We're still discussing it." My heart sank. Still discussing it, as if attending your daughter's retirement was a boardroom decision. Dad spoke next. "Emily needs a lot of help." There it was, the magic sentence. Emily needs, Emily wants, Emily feels, Emily decides, Emily matters. Always Emily. I forced a smile, even though they couldn't see it. "Okay. We'll try our best," Mom said. Try. Not promise. Try. After we hung up, I sat alone in my kitchen staring at the wall. I knew. Deep down, I already knew. The ceremony arrived on a bright Saturday morning. The sky was clear, the harbor was calm, everything looked perfect, except for the 3 empty seats in the front row, the seats I'd saved for my family, the seats I kept looking at, the seats that stayed empty. I checked my phone. No messages, no calls, nothing. Around me, other retirees were surrounded by family, children, grandchildren, parents, spouses, everyone smiling, everyone celebrating, and there I was, standing alone, trying not to notice, trying not to let 26 years of disappointment finally catch up to me. Then my phone buzzed. For a second, hope exploded inside me. Maybe they were late, maybe traffic, maybe a flight delay, maybe... I opened the message. It was a photo. Emily, laughing, holding a champagne glass, standing under wedding decorations. The caption said, "Wish you were here." That was it. No apology, no explanation, just "wish you were here." Like I wasn't sitting at the most important event of my life. Like they hadn't chosen her again. I stared at the screen, and something inside me finally cracked. Not dramatically, not loudly, just quietly, like an old rope snapping after years of strain. The ceremony began. I stood at attention, smiled when appropriate, shook hands, accepted congratulations, but inside, I felt numb. Then something unexpected happened. A senior officer stepped on the stage, and immediately the room changed. People straightened in their seats, conversations stopped, heads turned, because walking into the auditorium was a 4-star Admiral. Not scheduled, not expected, not announced. The entire room froze. I froze too, because I knew exactly who he was, and he knew exactly who I was. The Admiral walked directly towards the stage. The commanding officer whispered something. Both men looked in my direction. My pulse quickened. What was happening? The Admiral took the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen." The room fell silent. "I apologize for arriving unannounced." Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then he looked straight at me and smiled. A smile that instantly confused everyone, including me. "Before today's retirement ceremony continues," he paused, "I'd like to speak about Commander Claire Mitchell." The room turned towards me. Every eye, every face, suddenly focused on me. My heart started hammering. I had absolutely no idea what was about to happen, and neither did anyone else, including the family who had skipped my retirement for a wedding. But that was about to change, because 30 miles away, at Emily's wedding reception, a phone was already ringing, and the news about to arrive would leave the entire room speechless. The room was completely silent. The Admiral stood at the podium. Every eye was on him. Then he looked directly at me, and what he said next changed everything. "Commander Claire Mitchell served this nation for 26 years. His voice echoed through the auditorium. 3 deployments, 2 combat zones, thousands of sailors mentored, hundreds of missions completed. The audience listened carefully. Some nodded, some smiled, others looked surprised. But then the Admiral continued, and that's when things became different. Most people know Commander Mitchell's official record. He paused. But very few know what she did when nobody was watching. The room grew even quieter. I felt my stomach tighten, because I knew exactly where this was going, and I wasn't comfortable with it. Years earlier, during my second deployment, there had been an incident, one that never made headlines, one that never became public, one I never talked about. The Admiral looked around the room, then continued. Many years ago, during an emergency operation overseas, Commander Mitchell made a decision that saved lives. The audience leaned forward. Even my fellow officers looked curious. Most of them didn't know the story, because I'd never told it. The Admiral smiled slightly. She requested that the details remain private. A few people glanced at me. I stared at the floor, wishing I could disappear. But the Admiral wasn't finished. Today, however, I believe those sacrifices deserve recognition. The audience immediately applauded. I felt heat rise into my face. Then he said something I'll never forget. Some people spend their lives demanding attention. The room chuckled softly. Others spend their lives earning respect. Then he pointed toward me. Commander Mitchell belongs in the second category. The audience erupted. People stood, applause filled the room. A standing ovation. For me. For the first time in my life. I wasn't invisible. For the first time, people saw me. Not as Emily's sister, not as someone's daughter, not as the dependable backup plan. Just me. And somehow, that hurt almost as much as it healed, because the people I wanted there most were 30 miles away eating wedding cake. Then the Admiral reached into his folder. There's one more thing. The applause stopped. Everyone sat down. The Admiral unfolded a document. This morning, the Department of the Navy approved a special commendation. My commanding officer looked surprised. Apparently he hadn't known either. The Admiral smiled. This recognition is rarely awarded. The room became silent again. Then he read my name, the citation, the commendation, the details of service I'd spent years trying to forget. When he finished, the audience exploded. People jumped to their feet, some were cheering, some were wiping tears away. Several sailors were clapping so hard their hands turned red. And standing in the middle of it all, I felt completely overwhelmed. The Admiral stepped forward, shook my hand, then leaned closer. What you've done matters. I nearly lost control of my emotions, because those 4 words were all I'd wanted to hear my entire life. What you've done matters. Then he added quietly, don't ever let anyone convince you otherwise. I nodded, unable to speak. The ceremony ended shortly afterward. People crowded around me, offering congratulations, taking photographs, sharing memories. And for the first time that day, I smiled. A real smile. Not a forced one, not a polite one. A genuine smile. Then my phone started vibrating. Again and again and again. I pulled it out. 23 missed calls, all from family. My eyebrows lifted. That was strange. Then another call came through. Mom. I answered. Immediately, I heard chaos. People talking, music stopping, voices everywhere. Claire! Mom sounded panicked. Where are you? I almost laughed. At my retirement ceremony. Silence. Then, the Admiral was there? I blinked. How did she know that? Yes. Another silence. Longer this time. Then Dad grabbed the phone. What exactly happened? I could hear stress in his voice. Real stress. Not annoyance, not irritation. Stress. Why? I asked calmly. Then Dad said something unexpected. People at the wedding are talking about you. Now I was confused. What people? Dad hesitated, then answered. Everyone. Apparently, one of Emily's guests was a retired Navy officer. He recognized the Admiral immediately. Someone had found photos online, then videos, then social media posts. Within minutes, half the reception was discussing my ceremony. Guests were passing phones around, watching clips, reading comments, learning things about me that my family had never bothered to ask. And suddenly, the wedding wasn't the center of attention anymore. I sat quietly listening. For years, my family treated my career like background noise, something boring, something inconvenient, something less important than Emily's latest crisis. Now, hundreds of strangers were showing more interest in my life than my family ever had. Dad cleared his throat. We didn't know. There it was, the excuse. The same excuse they'd used for decades. We didn't know. The truth was simple. They didn't know because they never cared enough to ask. I stayed quiet. Mom took the phone. Her voice sounded smaller now. Honey. I closed my eyes. Honey, we're sorry. Sorry. After 26 years? Sorry. After missing the biggest day of my career? Sorry. After choosing another party, another celebration, another Emily event? Part of me wanted to scream. Part of me wanted to cry. Instead, I simply asked, Did Emily have a nice day? Silence. Then Mom answered, Yes. Good. Claire, I interrupted gently, I'm glad she had a nice day. And I meant it, because strangely enough, I wasn't angry anymore. The anger was gone. The disappointment was gone. Something else had replaced it. Acceptance. For years, I'd been chasing approval that was never coming, trying to earn love that should have been freely given, trying to win a competition I never entered. And suddenly, I was tired. Just tired. Dad spoke again. We want to make this right. I smiled sadly. No, Dad. What do you mean? You can't make today right. Silence. Because we both knew it was true. Some moments only happen once. Retirement happens once. A military career ends once. 26 years closes once. You don't get do-overs. Then I heard something unexpected. Emily. She apparently had been listening. Her voice came through the phone. For the first time in years, she didn't sound arrogant. She sounded ashamed. Claire? Yeah? I'm sorry. I waited. She continued. I never realized. There was emotion in her voice. Real emotion. Not manipulation, not drama. Just honesty. I didn't realize how much Mom and Dad always expected you to sacrifice. I didn't answer, because honestly, neither had I. Not completely. Not until today. Emily sniffled. I think I've been taking advantage of it years. The words shocked me, because they were true, and because she'd finally admitted it. I love you, she said quietly. The reception noise disappeared behind her. I should have been there. My eyes filled with tears, for the first time all day. Not because she missed the ceremony, because she finally understood. And sometimes understanding is more valuable than apology. A few weeks later, something happened that surprised everyone, including me. My parents started changing. Slowly, awkwardly, imperfectly, but genuinely. Dad began calling every Sunday. Mom stopped making excuses for Emily. And for the first time in our lives, the relationship felt balanced. Not perfect, just honest. Months later, during a family dinner, Dad raised a glass. Everyone looked at him. Then he turned toward me. His eyes filled with emotion. And he said, "The biggest mistake of my life was assuming you'd always be okay." The room became silent. Dad swallowed hard. You deserved better from us." Nobody spoke. Then he added, "And I'm proud of you." 26 years. That's how long it took to hear those words. 26 years. But strangely, they were worth waiting for. Because sometimes the greatest revenge isn't humiliation. It isn't winning. It isn't watching people fail. Sometimes the greatest revenge is finally realizing your worth and refusing to let anyone else define it. Not your parents, not your sister, not your family, not anyone. That day, my family chose a wedding over my retirement, but the Admiral gave me something far more valuable. A reminder that service matters, sacrifice matters, character matters, and whether people recognize it or not, what you've done matters. The Admiral was right. I never forgot those words, and I never will. The end.